Hello and welcome to the coronavirus update for the 18th of April 2020, where there are somewhat over 2 million people who have been confirmed to have the virus. About a third of them, just under a third, in the United States.
I tell you what, man, Thunderfoot sure has been getting a lot of mileage out of this whole coronavirus pandemic, quote unquote pandemic. I mean, he puts out a new video every single day, preaching gloom and doom. Today he's going to tell us why the Chinese are not faking their numbers. So let's take a listen, see if we can figure out what's going on.
And there are 158,000 people have died from it. Now, I've been tracking the ratio of those two numbers for some time, since there was less than 1 million cases in the world. And,
yeah, he's been tracking it for some time. I've seen his projections go for in the United States, dead from 1,000, as low as 1,000 to upwards of 5 million. That's quite a span, right? I mean, you pretty much cover everything there. If your projections were for the United States, it could be as potentially as low as 1,000 or potentially as high as 5 million. I think your projections are pretty well spread out there. You're almost destined to be correct with that. Now, of course, what he would probably say was, well, the 1,000 was, if the entire United States went into lockdown quarantine immediately. The 5 million would be if the United States didn't quarantine at all, didn't do anything at all. But really, what we're here to talk about is why the Chinese are on the up and up with their numbers. So let's hear what this, that's the title of the video. China caught faking the numbers, right? So let's hear what he's got to say.
Just keeping tabs on the number of confirmed cases and the number of people who died. And the ratio of those two is, in practice, the mortality of the virus. And it starts off at about 4.5%, and now it's up to about 6.5%. Because I know there will be some people dancing a little jig, because China has increased their death toll from the coronavirus by 1,200 people, by 50%, which proves that they were lying about the numbers.
It doesn't prove that they were lying about the numbers, but it's an indicator that they were not completely forthcoming, right? Or their calculations or their reportings were erroneous, right? And are erroneous, because even considering the little adjustment that they had, I think they went from like 3,300 to like 4,600 people, something like that. When every country in the rest of the world is reporting significantly higher percentages of mortality than the Chinese, like substantially more. And this is where the virus started, was in China, and China's population is, over 1 billion people, close to 1.5 billion people. And yet, China's reporting this as if it's nothing. It didn't really impact them at all. I guarantee you that China has 10 times more people die per day. They probably have, I don't know what the number is. I'm just estimating. I know that in the United States, the number is about 7,500 people a day die in the United States just on an average day. And so uh, China's population is 5 times that of the United States. So you can multiply that number by 5, 7,500 times 5. You're talking about, over 40,000 people a day die in China, would be my, guess, just from natural causes, this, that, and the other. So, less than 10% of what who normally dies a day in China were actually killed by the coronavirus. It's just obvious to anybody that's paying attention that one of two things is happening. Either the Chinese numbers are grossly underinflated, whether intentionally or just, out of just ignorance of not knowing, or the Chinese are, intentionally misleading the world, right? Or, there's some other nefarious reason for it.
And so I must be a real fool for believing them, and they were smart because.
You are a real fool if you believe the Chinese numbers were accurate, and you've proven it, because before they increased their death toll, you were saying Thunderfoots was saying the numbers were accurate. He believed the numbers. He completely bought into the numbers. China was completely on the up and up. If you listen to, the last several weeks of Thunderfoot's videos, he has been China's biggest proponent in the free world. I mean, do I think he's a fool? No, I don't think Thunderfoot's a fool. I think he's, he's he's being deceptive, probably for clicks and views. I don't know. I don't know why. Maybe most likely, possibly for political reasons, because I definitely don't agree with Thunderfoot's political innuendos and outright. He's obviously politicizing this whole coronavirus. These videos, almost all of them have something. He has something to say about, something to say about Trump, denigration of Trump. Trump's policies are shit. This, that, the other. And how? What does it say about a quote unquote scientist, right, that has to politicize his views to the point where he's being deceptive about the numbers, and that he'll back communism in order to get his political jabs in. That's pitiful, man. But anyway, let's keep going. What else does he have to say?
Now they believe the numbers from China. I mean, it's one of those things I just don't get. If you don't believe the numbers, then why would you believe them now? In reality, of course,
Wait a minute now. Who is saying that they believe the numbers now? Who said that? How disingenuous do you have to be? How disingenuous do you have to be to make the claim, or even to infer, that anybody who's critical or has been critical of China's numbers is now believing their numbers, right? Because they increased their death toll by 50%. I don't know anybody. I still don't believe their numbers. I think that their numbers are complete unadulterated bullshit. Um, the question to you, Thunderfoot, is if you believed their numbers before and they've now proven to you that their numbers were wrong before, why do you believe their numbers now? that's really, the more appropriate question. I mean, I could certainly turn your own question on you there. And my answer to your question is I don't believe their numbers now. I still think their numbers are grossly underinflated. Um, so if you believed their numbers before and they've changed their numbers now, why do you believe them now, Thunderfoot?
It's almost the very first thing that I said when looking at the China data, when it was basically the only data in the world, is this comes with all sorts of question marks attached to it. Yeah, this is long before you come to issues of, is someone actually faking the data?
I mean, I don't know for certain that the Chinese are faking their data. Maybe they're just counting their data differently than everybody else in the world. Maybe, they're not counting people who died that weren't completely 100% confirmed to have the virus, right? I mean, and maybe the virus is largely asymptomatic, right? There could be a lot of reasons. I believe that their numbers are grossly underinflated, and I believe that they know that their numbers are grossly underinflated. And I'm no conspiracy theorist. However, if you were China, right? China's economy struggles compared to most of the first world, right? China's got a huge population, um, and the Chinese are known for doing unscrupulous things. They manipulate their currency to, validate their own currency on the global markets. They have very lax copyright laws, if any, so they violate, the rest of the world's intellectual property rights on a daily basis. They don't recognize Taiwan as being an independent nation, right? They do a lot of unscrupulous things, at least from the American perspective. And I'm biased because I'm American, right? But I look at some of the stuff that the Chinese do, and I question it, right? Um, if I were China and my economy was suffering when compared to the economies of the European Union and the United States, um, I would like to figure out a way to equalize things. And I can't imagine a better way to equalize things than to unleash a virus on the world, to engage in biological warfare on the rest of the world. If I could figure out a way to genetically alter or to create a largely non-lethal virus, but a virus nonetheless that's problematic, that's going to cause a pandemic in the rest of the world, and I could figure out a way even if I have to use my own population as the mules for this virus, and I suspected that the virus was going to cause large, huge disruptions in the economies of my competitor nations. That's a potential path to take to equalize things. And I'm not saying that that's, what's going on here, but it's a possibility, right? And other benefits that would come from that because, you could kick back and see who's unprepared for something like this. How that your competitor nations are going to respond to a pandemic, right? If you've got the antidote, or you understand the transmission methods and how to properly deploy this on the world. And of course, hey, look, you turned it's impacted us too, right? The Chinese can point to it and have some sort of plausible deniability. Why would we do that to our own people? Right? Why would we unleash this virus on it started here first, right? But then you also have to ask yourself, why weren't they more forthcoming about this to the rest of the world? Why are their numbers so low when compared to most of the other nations of the world who are dealing with this right now? And Thunderfoot's answer is communism is a wonderful thing when it comes to combating viruses. There is no greater benefit to a nation than for its government to have complete and total authoritarian control of its populace, when the need arises to combat a pandemic. I mean, that's just sick and twisted in my mind. I would rather be sick and free than healthy and a slave to my government. Have the less than 0.01% chance of dying from a flu-like virus and be a free person, free to choose my own destiny for the most part in life, or have the 0% chance of dying from a flu-like virus and being a slave to my government. I don't know what about you, but that's kind of just how I roll, man.
And just to sort of highlight that point, if you take a look at New York City, in the past couple of days, they added another 3,500 to the number of people who died from.
So here comes the equivocation, right? So because the United States has to adjust their numbers, then therefore the Chinese adjustments of their numbers is perfectly legitimate. The only difference here, Thunderfoot, is that the United States is in the midst of the pandemic and is adjusting their numbers, and according to the Chinese, they've had the virus under control for a month now, right? So why are they adjusting their numbers of dead, a month after they've supposedly got it under control? I mean, that's kind of weird, right? Maybe they just see that the numbers in the rest of the world are a little bit higher, and hey, maybe in order to appease the world that's now questioning China's numbers, maybe they're offering reconciliation, to say, hey, yeah, you guys are right, we were wrong, and we do have a couple more that we can attribute to this thing, but still, look at us, look at communism. I mean, we're still doing way better than all the rest of you guys.
The coronavirus in New York City, which is, it increased their numbers from about 6,000 to 10,000, an increase of about 30% or something. And these are by no means.
I do have a problem with the the way that the deaths are being counted in the United States. I mean, I don't know specifically how they're going about it, how accurate it is. I've heard that they're you could go die of a heart attack today, and if you had a cough or whatever when you died, they'll count you as corona. They're counting people as coronavirus victims who are not 100% positively confirmed as coronavirus victims. Now, is that causing the numbers to be inflated? Yes. Is it causing them to be substantially inflated to the tune of what they are? Yeah, no, I doubt it. I mean, I still think this is a serious thing, and I believe the majority of the numbers of deaths that are being reported in the United States are accurate. But,
Unique considerations. You take a look at the UK. So actually, let's take a look at some of these countries. The UK. They don't count the people. They only count the people who die in hospitals. They don't count the people who die in old age homes or just at home. They only count people who die in hospital. And the UK, by the way, is not looking good. There is very little in the way of slowdown here. Germany looks like they got on top of it. Well, and even at that, maybe. And Italy is maybe more where you would expect America to mirror, which basically means it's going to be in the linear regime for a long time to come.
How do you conclude that Italy and the United States are on parallel paths? Because Italy is having the most problematic issue with the coronavirus. I mean, that's he's taking the nation that is having the absolute hardest time, the absolute largest percentage of death of their population, and saying, look, America's like that, right? And without any justification at all. But I've talked to other people who lived in Italy for years, and a friend of mine who was in the military, lived in Italy for about 5 or 6 years, said that the reason is because the Italians have huge population centers of elderly people. The young people, by and large, Italian youth have immigrated out of Italy, leaving villas and villages and towns with large numbers of elderly, to the point where they've undergone these advertising campaigns to kind of to try to bring the youth back into Italy. So that's one potential explanation why their numbers are so high. They just have a large population of old and susceptible people, coupled with a medical system that isn't geared for dealing with a pandemic like this. And honestly, the United States and Italy are not even close to being on the same path. If you look at the percentage of mortality, of deaths in each nation per 1 million of the population, the United States is lower on that list than Norway, than France, than the UK, than Switzerland, even. So no, Thunderfoot. You got to have some evidence to make that assertion, and you're not presenting any. To make the assertion that the United States and Italy are on the same projected paths, based on what, dude? You're supposed to be a scientist. You know, you're supposed to have empirical proof in your assertions, and you have none.
And you take a look at the US. So this is now cases per day. There's sort of 4,000 cases per day new. You take a look at America. The idea that you're going to be opening up America in 2 weeks it's unrealistic.
Nobody has said that we're going to open up the United States in 2 weeks. Okay, right now they're trying to feed this to the American people a little bit at the time. If you were the leader of the United States, Thunderfoot, and you said, "Listen, hey, I'm King Thunderfoot of the United States, and due to this pandemic, we're shutting everything down for 6 months." Right? Or we're shutting everything down until further notice, until King Thunderfoot says, we're safe, we're in the clear to open back up. You'd have riots on your hands, dude. We already have protests going on, and here's the reality. What happened to personal responsibility, Thunderfoot? Why, if you are susceptible, right? You have a low immune system, or you're elderly, or whatever. You're afraid of catching the corona. Why can't you make the decision for yourself to go quarantine yourself, to isolate until you feel like you're in the clear? Why do you feel that the government should have the authority to shut you down, to shut us all down, right? In what world do you live in where you want the government having the power over you to just make you do whatever it wants to do? It doesn't make any sense, dude. You grew up in one of the freest nations on earth. You have no experience with living under totalitarianism, dude. You should appreciate the freedom that you have. Just that you're able to express your opinion in favor of communist China so openly. you should be. It kind of reminds me of the joke that guy used to tell that in the United States we used to have this comedian who pretended to be like a Russian under back during the Cold War, and he would joke, he would make the joke that in the United States, American citizen says that they can criticize the president of the United States anytime they like. So therefore they are free. In Soviet Union, we say we too can criticize the president of the United States anytime we like, and that's kind of like how it is in China. The Chinese can certainly criticize, the West anytime they like, but they can't criticize their own government. Imagine Thunderfoot being in China, right? Being born and brought up in China, and him trying to express his views on the internet, which is, not even a thing for most Chinese people.
Incidentally, I've also been following various stats on America in more detail. So one of them is you take a look at the day-on-day increase in the number of people who actually are confirmed as having the virus, and you get below the red line, then that means eventually you'll get it under control. So America is the blue line here, and it's just about got underneath the red line, which is good.
Wait a minute now. Just about gotten underneath it. I mean, it looks to me like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's creeping back up, but all of your dots, if we zoom in on that, are underneath the red line. And you just got through saying that, you get under the red line, well, you'll eventually get it under control. So, what's your problem here? Looks to me like it's a tacit admission that, we're under control in the United States. We're under the red line, been under the red line for quite some time. If these are in days, right, that's 30 days. So what is this? 35 days. So since like day, I don't know, 33 or something, last week or whatever, your data is showing that it's under control. It's your data.
That means that eventually it will come under control, but it's going to take a while. And this incident, it was Italy, and Italy is about a week ahead. And they also, interestingly enough, plateaued out for a bit here. I don't know whether this is a real effect or something. But so those are the confirmed cases in America. And if you take a look at the deaths, so this is the day-on-day change in the rate. So the world spread rate is 1.3. It's getting down to about 1.05. This, by the way, is the huge spike from the extra deaths in New York being counted. And this is an extrapolation here, because at the moment the curve looks like it's flattened out, and it's flattened out above 1.05, which basically means it's never going to come under control. And so you look at the day-on-day deaths in America, and they've got up to about just over 2,000. And if you take this extrapolation here, remember that over the...
I mean, just not even a month ago, you were predicting millions dead in the United States. You were predicting upwards close to 5 million, and we're not even over, you're saying about 2,000 people a day. Well, if we were 2,000 people a day every single day from Corona in a month, that's 60,000 people, 2 months, 120,000 people. How long would it take us to get to 5 million? Right? We're not ever going to get there. And it's not 2,000 every single day. Yesterday it was like 1,500, I believe. It goes up. It's varied over the last week from about 1,500 to about 2,500, I believe. Yeah, that looks like that's what your data here is showing. So it's averaging about 2,000. This is a outlier here, the 6,185. That's just the adjustment. You can toss that number out.
When I last did these projections, it looked like it was just coming straight down. And if it had done that by about this sort of time, you'd only be looking at about 50,000 dead. If it now does this, you're up to at least 100,000 again. So this is now your projected number of deaths, and it maxes out at about 100,000. In reality, of course, after that sort of maxed out, it'll drift up for maybe another 50% if it sort of follows what Italy is doing. So it looks like it's maybe back on course for 150,000.
I mean, how does this video is supposed to be talking about how China caught faking the numbers, right? But yet he's talking about is how many are going to die in the United States. I would agree. You know, we're looking probably at somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000 dead, just based on what's going on right now, and that's tragic and all that. But how is the United States having 100,000 going to have 100,000 people die, and China's going to have 4,500 people total die? You know, it doesn't pass anybody's test of logic. No rational person is going to look at what's going on in the rest of the world and what has apparently gone on in China and make the claim that China's numbers are accurate. Why? What motivation do you have to make that claim? Because it's not based on anything in reality. You have no idea, Thunderfoot, what's going on in China. You're getting fed what they want to feed you, because the Chinese media is what independent sources that are in China on the ground, that are not controlled by the Chinese government, did you use to get your information from? Right, you're just looking at the numbers going, seriously, Thunderfoot's looking at the numbers going, yeah, this makes complete sense compared to what we're seeing in the rest of the world. So, yeah, absolutely. I completely buy into what China's feeding me, because for whatever reason, Thunderfoot thinks the numbers from China look realistic. I haven't dug into it in that much detail, but I mean, just on the surface of it, smells like shit to me, dude.
Thousand deaths in America. Now, the one thing I just don't understand is, and it is cropped up again and again in the news recently, and it looks like Donald Trump is pushing to reopen the country.
I mean, here comes the politics. This is the point of like 9 out of 10 videos that Thunderfoot has made on this. It's to take jabs at Donald Trump. He just got through saying that, you get below the red line, that it's eventually going to come under control. So the United States is below the red line. Looks like it's coming under control. But Donald Trump. Donald Trump.
Well, yeah, it can do that, but honestly, at this sort of point, what was the point of the $2 trillion bailout? Which, I'll stress these as numbers again, because it's useful to know. If you're going to spend $2 trillion, 2 with 12 zeros, for a bailout, and you're doing that to save 2 million lives, that's 2 with 6 zeros.
No. No. The point of the bailout was not to save lives, Thunderfoot. You're talking about you're convoluting two different things, right? The bailout was not to save lives, right? The stay-at-home orders and the government mandated shutdowns of certain businesses not deemed non-essential, right? And the employees who've lost their jobs as a result of that are the purpose of the bailouts, right? The government shutdown was to flatten the curve so that we didn't over tax our medical system, right? So we had enough hospital beds and enough respirators and enough N95 masks and all the other crap that goes along with this, right? We wanted to flatten the curve. That doesn't mean we were trying to save any lives, right? The argument can be made that the same number of people are ultimately going to die. Now, you're not saving any lives. You're just flattening the curve so that those people that are going to die over a longer span of time, right? More slowly, so that we don't overwhelm the medical system, right? And in which case, even more people are going to die. You're going to have people that are going to die, not necessarily of corona, but let's say, you got a critical emergency, right? You get a heart attack, right? All of these other things, a stroke, right? You have a gallstones or a liver issue or your appendix burst or something like that. You can't get in the hospital because they're packed out with corona victims, right? Now you got people dying of things that are completely, you were able to save them under normal circumstances, but you can't because you're too busy fighting the corona. So that was the purpose of the shutdown, to flatten the curve. The purpose of the bailout was to save the economy or to try to offset the issues caused by shutting down due to flattening the curve. So don't convolute the two things. You're being insincere. You're being intellectually dishonest.
Those lives, that means you're spending $1 million for every life that you save. That's what the bailout package cost you. Now, for that, you'd have thought you'd have splurged and actually got some masks or something.
I mean, you really can't. You can't even. You can't even possibly, in good faith, make that argument, dude. You have no idea what the bailout package costs per life saved because you don't know how many people are dying due to their businesses failing, committing suicide, right? You don't know how many people are dying due to losing their jobs, not being able to support their families, due to stress, depression, right? How many people are dying because they're now afraid to go to the hospital because for something that they could be saved from because they're afraid to go to the hospital because they might get corona, or they think that they're not going to get any attention from the hospital because the hospital's too busy dealing with corona, or the hospital is turning people away. I had a friend last week who said his son is sick, right? Has a fever, low-grade fever, and has sinus issues and other symptoms that we've been told are corona related. Calls 3 different nurses and they said, oh, that's not corona, but just to be sure, go ahead and self-isolate your family for 10 days, right? But didn't want them to bring their child, their adolescent son, into the hospital to get them checked out. That's what's going on here. It's ridiculous. There's no way that you can know how many people are being saved, by the bailout. It's just an insincere argument. It's ridiculous.
But there are now all these protests saying that they want to reopen America again. And
I know, isn't freedom great? Isn't it great, man? There's some people that believe that, hey, we should be able to, choose our own destiny, right? We should just be able to do what we want to do as long as we're not hurting anybody else, right? And if you think that, well, by me going to my job, working my business, doing my thing, might potentially make you sick, which might potentially, cause you to die or whatever, then you have the right to go and self-isolate, right? You can quarantine yourself, your family, do whatever you think you need to do, hide under your bed, right? But don't tell me that I should be able to live my life and do what I need to do for my family. You don't have that right. You don't.
Trump is Yeah, they're solely Trump supporters who want to reopen the economy, which is it's
I can tell you this, Thunderfoot. I live in the United States. The economy's not shut down here. It's not. You know, you say reopen the economy, quote unquote, reopen the economy. Um, Most businesses are still open, like in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Unless you are in the you absolutely can't open up for whatever reason, right? For instance, the food and beverage industry in my state is closed down by executive order of the governor, unless, with the exception of doing delivery and doing takeout, right? So if you can figure out a way to do delivery and do takeout, and you're in that sector, you're still open, man. The gas stations are still open. The little convenience stores are still open. The grocery stores are still open. The Walmarts are still open. The Lowe's are still open. The Home Depots are still open. The Costco's are still open. The places where hundreds of people congregate every single day are still open. The economy's still, in general, going. It's just, a number of people are scared to go out, or they're conscientiously doing their part, quote unquote, doing their part, because the fear has been put into them to such an extent. There's nothing keeping anybody at home here, in general, right? It's like, they put out an executive order in many states where the governor says, yeah, you're under stay-at-home order, but it's a mealy-mouthed order without any authority. And so people can just go out and do what they want. The government really can't stop them. And those who value freedom are, going out and protesting, right? And there isn't shit that anybody can do about it. Why don't they go and arrest all those protesters? Because they can't do shit about it. So what you're saying is, those people should be subjugated. They should be told to shut the fuck up and made to go home, or thrown into a prison somewhere. No, dude. They're expressing their political opinions. You might not agree with them. We might not agree with you, but they're not afraid, dude. I mean, that's why we over here on this side of the pond fucking just completely kicked the ever loving shit out of you redcoats when you came over to try to subjugate us. Took all your fucking tea and we threw it in the harbor. And then we got behind every rock and tree in the bushes and just picked you little limeys off one at the time, until you guys, all right, said, well, yeah, okay, let's let us go back home, leave these people to their to their destiny, right? And then we created a republic. You guys have a constitutional monarchy. You know, we're relatives in the sense of human beings are relatives to the chimpanzees, right? We're the descendants of you guys, but we live free, man. We value freedom over here on this side of the pond. We value freedom. You might, bow down and kiss, the ground that the queen walks on, but we have no monarchy over here. You don't like Trump over here? Well, guess what? In 6 months, they'll have the ability to vote him out. We won't, though. He's doing a great job. We like him. You don't like him after that, and 4 more years, he'll be gone. We'll have some other dipshit up there spreading nonsense.
dumb on so many levels. You might remember I had a chart that looked a little bit like this. There we go. So this is just going to be your GDP in sort of arbitrary.
All right, I'm bored with this bullshit at this point. The coronavirus is serious. I don't want to make light of that. You know, people are dying, but using it, using it, using this crisis to make your political points, your anti-Trump points, and fear mongering, you know, and talking about millions are going to die and propping up communism in China, right? And inferring that authoritarian communism is a plus compared to, you know, Western democracy. Dude, you really need to rethink your. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Thunderfoot when he's not being political. His videos are good, they're informative, they're entertaining. But you, Thunderfoot, need to really rethink your political stance, my man. Freedom and free people engaging in freedom is a beautiful thing. I applaud people exercising their better judgment, right? If you are concerned about the corona, then by all means, isolate yourself, quarantine yourself, quarantine your family. If that's what you feel like you need to do, wear your masks, wear your gloves. You know, whatever you think you need to do it. If you're not afraid and you want to live your life and be free from government, whatever, you know, whatever your motivation is, then do that. Right? We're here on this planet to do what we see fit. It's your life. Live it. If you know, you have no responsibility to your fellow man other than to obey, you know, lawful, logical, rational rules, right? Cultural norms. Be polite, be considerate. You know, maintain your 6 foot social distancing, right? Because right now that's what, you know, most people think are necessary. So you don't want to, you know, if somebody's out getting their groceries or whatever, you don't want to infringe upon their personal space. But and you know, like right now, I'm refraining from handshaking and physical contact, and I'm trying to make a conscious decision to respect other people's physical boundaries. But the idea that I'm doing it because government told me I had to do that is absurd. I'm doing it because other people, my neighbors, my friends, you know, my fellow citizens are trying to do something. You know, they're trying to flatten the curve, right? We're trying to flatten the curve. That's it. Do I believe that it's going to save lives? No. Do I believe that everybody's going to get this eventually, right? That hasn't gotten it already? Probably. And are people going to die from it? Yes, they are. And that's tragic. Anytime somebody dies, quote unquote, unnecessarily, that's tragic. Right? But do I respect communist China's ability to flatten their curve through authoritarian government? No. Do I think that the Chinese could be responsible for this? There's an argument to be made that they quite possibly could be, man. Um, I hope that's not the case. They better hope it's not the case. I'm not sure what we would do if we found out that the Chinese were responsible. But anyway, listen, I've rambled on this long enough. I'm going to edit the shit out of this down to, whatever I can get out of it that's substantive. Yeah. Y'all have a good one, all right?